And according to UNICEF, Canada's child welfare has been eroding significantly since 2017. That's 9 years.
I have a great deal of confidence in young people. I think they are resilient. I think they are creative. And I think they're going to be one of the most successful generations that we have seen in the history of mankind. But I'm old enough now to know that there's always been difficulties and challenges that face generations that have come before us. And always mankind has risen to the occasion. And I believe that your generation genuinely is the most talented I have ever seen. Perseverance is the element, I think, that if you clearly comprehend and live by, you will at the end of the course be fulfilled and reach your true achievements. The piece of advice I'm going to give your generation and younger is don't be afraid to try and don't be afraid to fail. The number one impediment to success is an unwillingness to take a risk, to try something. Worst comes to worst, it won't work. You try something else.
With the ongoing 2026 Iran war, disrupting global energy markets, oil prices are surging, and key supply routes like Strait of Hormuz under pressure. What does this moment reveal about Canada's energy strategy?
It's a very powerful question because there's two important elements in this.
Senator Housakos, with everything that's happening in the world right now and here in Canada, are you worried for the younger Canadians today?
Am I worried for younger Canadians today? No, I'm not. I'm one of those, few optimists who believe that the future is bright. I have a great deal of confidence in young people. I think they are resilient. I think they are creative. I think they have more sources of information before them. And I think they're going to be one of the most successful generations that we have seen in the history of mankind. Are they facing existential challenges right now? Of course they are. Are they facing a situation where AI is one of those challenges that faces their generation that's going to ask them to stretch and be even more innovative and adjust to those realities? Absolutely. But I'm old enough now to know that there's always been difficulties and challenges that face generations that have come before us. And always mankind has risen to the occasion. And I believe that your generation genuinely is the most talented I have ever seen.
Mm-hmm. I actually have the same views as you. I'm a millennial, I'm in my 30s. And, as somebody who actually likes to read about history, you're so right. Like, there has always been difficulties, challenges humanity has faced throughout the years. But here we are, right? Even with all these technological advancements. And I feel like, my generation and the younger generation are very resilient. I speak to a lot of Gen Zs, and they tend to be even more optimistic, I find, when it comes to the future than my generation, for some reason. When I speak to, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, I ask them, what do you want to do later on? Are you scared of the future? And they tell me, I want to get a job, I want to have a family, I want to get married. And I find that really interesting and refreshing because a lot of people from my generation, they tend to be more fearful about the future, the economy, AI, even what's happening in the Middle East right now.
Look, my generation had uncertainties. We went through a technological transformation, not to the degree that we see today, but we did. Just the arrival of the iPad, some of the computers and softwares that came into existence in the 1980s and 90s, and now I'm giving my age a little bit up here, was overwhelming for my generation. And every generation is concerned about, is there going to be enough opportunity? Will there be enough wealth? Will we be able to be as successful as the previous generation? And it's been for a very long time now. The Western democratic world has provided our societies growth and opportunity. There's problems. We need, I think, to get governments under control to some extent. I think spending is a little bit out of control. I think there's been too much reliance on government, but I don't want to get too political. What I want to say, though, that these are things that will be addressed. And if they won't be addressed appropriately by my generation of legislators, at some point in time, they will be addressed by your generation of legislators. So it's a matter of time. I remember when I was a young 20, 25, 30-year-old, and I started my business career, I had some long sleepless nights where I tossed and turned and wondered, I'll try this and I'll try that, and will it work? The piece of advice I'm going to give your generation and younger is don't be afraid to try and don't be afraid to fail. The biggest, I think, the number one impediment to success is an unwillingness to take a risk, to try something. Worst comes to worst, it won't work. You'll try something else.
Now, growing up in Montreal, a son of immigrants, what did Canada mean to you and your family? And do you think it still lives up to that promise today?
No doubt. As you know, Margie, my parents immigrated here in the 1950s, my mom and my dad, for a better opportunity. They left the Balkans, Southern Europe, Greece, a country that was a beacon of democracy, a beacon of hope, and unfortunately ran into some difficulties in the middle 20th century. And they came here under the same premise as millions of other Canadians, all of us, regardless of where we come from in the world. We have come here fleeing economic difficulties, political difficulties, in search of a better future. I have absolutely a deep sense of love and commitment to this country that my parents have instilled in me. My mom told me just towards the end of her life a few years ago when she passed away, she says, there's no country like Canada. It's a country where I embraced me, and she said, it's a country where the harder I worked, the further I got. And I believe that is the Canada that exists still today. Like I said, are we the best country in the world? I think we are. But can we do better? We can. We need to always strive to improve. But I still believe, if you compare Canada, and I've traveled a fair amount around the world, there's no country in the world that offers the promise and opportunity to its citizens that this country offers.
Absolutely. I'm an immigrant myself. I came here with my family in the 90s, late 90s, and I didn't have like political connections. I'm not like, I didn't come from like a wealthy family or anything like that. But as you know, I still had the opportunity to go to university, make something of myself, and even run for office last federal election, right? Like, that's not something you get to have in any other countries. Like, I would not be running for office in the Philippines.
100%.
Right?
Look, I'm a child of immigrant parents who came here, and Canada afforded my parents an opportunity to fulfill their dream. And imagine in 2009, when I was appointed to the Senate of Canada, both my mom and dad were sitting in the gallery of the Senate of Canada watching their son be appointed to the highest legislative body in this country. In 2015, they both had the privilege of seeing me appointed by Prime Minister Harper as Speaker. These are wonderful stories, and these stories come only from countries that give an opportunity to every single one of their citizens to stretch themselves and be the best that they can be. Were there difficulties in their road, both for my mom and dad? Were there difficulties in my road and that of my wife and my family to achieve the success that we've achieved in our life? Absolutely. But we weren't afraid to try. We weren't afraid to fail. And there's a word I believe is imperative to success that young people have to understand the definition and live by it. And it's called perseverance. Perseverance is the element, I think, that if you clearly comprehend and live by, you will at the end of the course be fulfilled and reach your true achievements, whatever they may be.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what lessons from your early life do you carry into your political work?
Look, being a child of immigrants and being an immigrant yourself, I always say that it's a little bit tougher than for old stock Canadians, because we come to a land where we have to adapt, we have to integrate, we have to learn quicker than those that are born and raised here, like my children, for example. And fundamentally, and I think most importantly, we live by the values that our parents instill in us. I know you, Margie, now for quite a while, and it's evident that you have deep values that have been instilled in you that come from your home, not just your education, not just your community, not just the environment you evolve in. My parents instilled in me the principles of hard work, perseverance, discipline, and love for one's community. Those are the values that drove me, I think, to be successful, and those were the values that drove me into public life.
So what pulled you into politics? Was it ambition? Was it frustration? Was it a sense of responsibility?
It's the sense of responsibility. As I said, the values my parents instilled in me, one of the important ones was commitment to family, to community, to country. My dad, to this day, he's 91 years old, and he is tellement reconnaissant, as we say in French, completely grateful to Canada for the opportunities that it afforded him, and his son, and his grandchildren. So those are the driving forces. It was never, my engagement in politics was not by protest or anger or frustration. It was love of country, sense of commitment that I need to give back because this country has given us so much.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I've always been grateful. One thing I love that my parents did is that they made sure that we integrated properly, especially here in Quebec. I learned French, just like you went to French school. And I'm so proud of that. Like, I'm so happy I get to speak French and learned it. Because when I moved to Toronto, the fact that I spoke French opened up so many more doors for me. And, just even getting compliments, right, from, Canadians in Toronto, like, they were just so impressed. The fact that, like, someone like me, I'm an immigrant Canadian, and I could speak French, right? So it's amazing.
To that point, Margie, I think there's no greater, degree of appreciation an immigrant can show our country than integrate, join it, be part of it. Learning the two official languages, or at least at bare minimum one of the two, it shouldn't be a requirement. It should be a thirst for someone who arrived here, because that is, from that point on, you will learn about the culture. You will obviously get better opportunities in order to give yourself a chance to get a better job, and economic success, and so on and so forth. So I think that's the starting point. I agree with you. I'm fortunate enough to speak 3 languages. I wish I spoke 4. But to speak the 2 official languages of the country, I think, is an imperative. I think we have to go back to celebrating our official bilingualism in this country rather than denigrating it from time to time and using it as a divisive element. The 2 founding people who created Canada, the French and English, and obviously the First Nation peoples who are they are the indigenous people of this land, are the foundation of our country. So we cannot go forward without celebrating our foundation and our past and create a strong, united Canada unless we celebrate the elements like bilingualism, which was one of the ingredients that put the country together, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's what makes Canada so unique, right? The fact that you have a place like Quebec, city like Montreal, and like when I go to the US, right? Like when people think of Canada and they think of Quebec and Montreal, they just think of like, oh, they're like really good people, nice people. And I love that, right? And the fact that we have really vibrant culture here, especially here in Montreal, right? We have bilingualism, we have multiculturalism, which is like, makes the city more diverse, right? And now, back to your political history, was there a defining moment that made you say, I need to be in this room? Because I remember you told me that you started volunteering when you were just a teenager, right? Like, did you always want to be in politics, or were you like, you were volunteering and then there was like a moment in your life during that time where you were like, okay, I need to be in politics?
No, there wasn't a particular moment. You're absolutely right. I got involved as a young teenager volunteering on municipal campaigns, federal, provincial campaigns. I just found public discourse of interest. I believed, and I still believe today, as the ancient Greeks did, that it is our responsibility to engage, to participate in the democratic process. Every citizen has to at least pay attention to what's going on, because when citizens don't pay attention, that's when we lose our freedom and our democracy, and that is something that we should never take for granted. All of us that have come here as immigrants or are children of immigrants, the number one thing that we have to celebrate, and every single time we look at the maple leaf, it is a symbol of freedom, of a better life. And we're all preoccupied on a day-to-day basis with making a living, with paying our bills. I did too, because most of my political life, I was involved from the peripheries, but I was running my businesses. I was getting up in the morning, going to work every day like every other Canadian citizen. But I found a few hours a week to read, to investigate, to discuss with my friends, to seek the truth, and to try to participate at whatever way I could participate. Without that participation of citizens, democracy fails. And if democracy fails, we go to a very dark place.
Now, Canadians, right, are increasingly skeptical of institutions. So whether it's government, media, public health, do you think that distrust is justified?
Distrust is not justified. Skepticism should be welcome. And I think what is going on today in 2026 is a byproduct of what we're doing here now. We are on platforms and we have a capacity to communicate with citizens in the world in ways that didn't exist. Forget about 20 years ago, not even 10 years ago. And it's become a double-edged sword. It has exposed our institutions to the public in ways that it never exposed it in the past, in a good way and in a bad way, of course, because it has shown all the blemishes, and it also shows, I think, the strengths of our institutions. So that is what I believe. I believe it's making it a little bit more challenging on those institutions, on our parliaments, on our governments, on our ministries, on our public servants. It's made it a little bit more difficult for them to navigate, because it's a lot easier when your blemishes are camouflaged. But I also see an opportunity where it will force all members of public life to be better than they are. And that's why I always look at the positive side of things rather than the negative side of things. So yeah, it's been like a mixed bag. There's been a lot of misinformation, disinformation, most of it being spread by nefarious forces around the world that want to see democracies like Canada fail. There's dictatorships and authoritarian regimes around the world that are using all these wonderful platforms for negative purposes. But I believe there's more people, more agents of good like you, who are using these platforms for positive purposes, to be able to go out and communicate and shed light for people to get as much information as possible. So that is my view on that. The advice I give your viewership and the general public is, don't be negative. Don't be cynical. Be skeptical. Skepticism is good. Then analyze based on that skepticism. Challenge as much as possible. Challenge yourself. And I think if we all do that to some degree, we will have better political discourse, better public institutions, and better outcomes.
Yeah, I agree with you. During the pandemic, I was Angry, I was hopeless. I was on Twitter trying to get everybody to like support my cause.
Right.
I was against certain things. I don't want to get too much into it. But then I was like, I could stay fearful, angry at, everything in the world and what's happening, or I could do something about it. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to get involved with the Conservative Party, because I felt like they have values, especially with Pierre Poilievre, they have values that resonated with me. So, and I ended up like running for office, right? And not just voting, But now, asking the younger generation to participate is even a lot, because a lot of the times you can't even get them to vote. They feel like their vote doesn't matter, it won't make a difference. What can you say to them to inspire them and to encourage them to vote or to participate in the political process and system?
Get involved. Don't let anybody knock you down. It's easy to get depressed. It's easy to look at something and say, this hill is too tall a hill to climb, so I'm not going to try doing it. And that's the point in my opening remarks. I said, people have to try. They have to stretch themselves. They have to reach out. Success doesn't come easy and nobody gives it to you. I tell my own kids, I have 2 sons. They're approximately your age, 26, 29. That generation, very successful, very hardworking. I tell them all the time, and I'll share that same advice with the rest of the world. Stretch yourself. I know you guys are working hard. We all are. And I remember when I was in my mid-20s and 30s, 2 young kids and a young family, and full of insecurity because of financial challenges. And it looked like insurmountable buying a home, even in my generation, insurmountable paying that home off and being successful. Now, I acknowledge it's even tougher. But I believe the rewards are even greater for those that put in the effort and they succeed. In life, you'll always have winners and losers. Perseverance, hard work, commitment will lead you to success. I have no doubt. The thing we have to overcome in the next decade or so, and I acknowledge it as a member of the Senate, as a parliamentarian, your generation is in the process of living through the biggest transfer of wealth that we've ever seen in the history of mankind. Why? Because baby boomers, and I'm a little bit below the baby boomers, I'm not that old, but baby boomers have also seen probably the most success in accumulating wealth, never seen before by any other generation. So there is a massive transfer now of wealth going on that is creating discrepancies amongst the next couple of generations that are coming. So if you happen to have a wealthy grandmother or grandfather, people who have assets, people who did really well over the last 50 years, you have a disproportionate chance of success. Those that come to Canada like my dad did, with $5 in his pocket in 1959, and worked hard 75 years of his life and has achieved great success. Those opportunities are not there yet for Canadians at the same level they were. So when I say I'm certain your generation is going to do great, I'm also cognizant that we in government and in the public service have to create a more level playing field for those young Canadians that aren't starting off with an asset, with a support from a grandfather, a grandmother, a mother or father, because those Canadians have just as much to offer. And our Canadian system succeeded. Remember what my mother said, the harder I worked, the further I got. So what that tells me is my mom, who came from very humble beginnings, my dad came from very humble beginnings, were able to achieve great things through great work, hard work and sacrifice. That's not entirely the case today. So we in public office should make sure that we equal that playing field.
So what can the Senate do? Like maybe you could tell us a little bit about your role there and the role of the Senate, and what can the Senate do to regain trust of the youth, to get them to participate, to vote?
Well, look, people forget very often that when we talk about the Parliament of Canada is not just the House of Commons. They get all the attention because they do all the arguing and all the bickering. But the truth of the matter is our parliamentary system is based on the Westminster British parliamentary system, has two chambers, has the upper chamber, which is the Senate of Canada, and the House of Commons. It's an identical parliamentary process, more or less to that of Westminster in the United Kingdom, in London. The Senate is an appointed body. Senators are not elected. They're appointed till the age of 75 by sitting prime ministers when there's a vacancy. The House of Commons, of course, as you know, has elections every 4 years if there's a minority parliament sometime sooner. We have the same rights and privileges, so people don't realize that, but in order for a law to become law in Canada, it has to go through a 3-reading process in the House of Commons and the Senate, and it has to pass from both chambers for it to become law. Both chambers can amend, both chambers can also propose law, propose motions, propose amendments. We do 3 readings in each chamber. We send to committee in each chamber. The forefathers of Confederation in 1867 thought that the Senate was necessary because an upper body would be a review process, sober second thought. The fact that it would be an appointed body would make it less political, less partisan, would have a little bit more constructive approach to giving opinions. The other thing it does is it gives an opportunity for stakeholders and citizens who don't feel they're being heard in one chamber or another to have a dual opportunity for their opinions to be heard. So the answer to how we can continue to help democracy and encourage young people, if you have concerns and you feel like your members of parliament in the House of Commons are not responding, reach out to your senator. It gives you another opportunity to be heard, to come before a Senate committee. Senators are in Parliament right next door to the House of Commons. We're a conduit and a vehicle for your concerns to be heard. When I speak, and I particularly believe that my job is to represent my region, my city of Montreal, the communities that make up Montreal, but particularly young people, because I do believe they are our future. So I want those young people to not hesitate to reach out to me. Go to the Senate website. You'll see my email, leo.housakos@sen.parl.gc.ca. Reach out, feel free. I answer. I might take a little bit of time, but I will get back to you, I promise you.
That's actually true. Like, you're easily one of the most approachable politicians I've ever met in my life.
Thank you.
And that's one of the reasons why, when we met, it was at a Filipino event, right?
Yes.
And we showed up there, and I just love how, you just integrated there in the community. Like, people love you because you're so approachable. And I feel like what you do also, what you're really good at, is that you make people feel seen. It doesn't matter what they do for a living, who they are. Like, you make people feel valued. And that's why I was like, I need to have Senator Housakos on this podcast.
I appreciate it. Like I said, who I am is a byproduct of the values my parents instilled in me. So when we go to a Filipino festival or any other festival, I see versions of my parents there. People that have come to this country, doesn't matter if it's from the Philippines or from Ukraine or from mainland China or Taiwan or from Southeast Asia, they all come here with the same dream, the same hope, the same aspirations, the same values of hard work. And if I, as a parliamentarian, can do something to encourage them, to give them hope, more importantly, to help rectify issues that and obstacles they're facing in government, I feel that an obligation of mine. There's no greater honor than to serve the public interest. Having been appointed to the Senate by Prime Minister Harper, I take my job very seriously. I'm a servant of all those people. And like I said, Montreal is made up of various communities. And the day I feel that I'm mailing it in or not at their service at 100% of my max, that will be the day I will find something else to do.
Now, with the ongoing 2026 Iran war, disrupting global energy markets, oil prices are surging and key supply routes like Strait of Hormuz under pressure. What does this moment reveal about Canada's energy strategy?
It's a very powerful question because there's two important elements in this. Number one, I will touch upon the fact that the conflict right now in Iran is not one between Israel and Iran or the United States, Israel and Iran. It's a conflict between the free world and autocratic states. Democracy has never been more in peril than it is today. We're facing challenges from an authoritarian regime in Beijing, an authoritarian theocratic regime in Iran, a dictator in Moscow, a bully in Erdogan in Istanbul, I call it Constantinople. All these nefarious forces around the world have emulsified into for different reasons. They're strange bedfellows, but they all have one goal in mind, and that is to tear down our democratic Western world with the values that we know, cherish, and should defend at all costs. So it's unfortunate that the Western world is not more aligned in dealing with this crisis in Iran, is not more aligned in defending the Free State of Israel. We're not more aligned in making sure that the Strait of Hormuz is open and operating so we can continue to have our societies and our economies function. And I hope we find that alignment in due course. And I hope at some point in time, our leaders of all Western democracies understand that the number one heritage we can give to our children is the same freedom and robust democracies we inherited. Now, the energy crisis that is the aftermath of this conflict and war in Iran is a crisis that existed also before the war in Iran. Our economies are growing. Demand on our grids is growing. Doesn't matter if it's electricity, fossil fuels, oil, gas, and they will continue to grow because unfortunately some of these nefarious autocratic and regimes, dictatorial regimes, have access to oil and gas. And it's a long introduction to the crux, my answer to your question. Canada could be and was and should return to being an energy superpower. But we need to develop our natural resources. We can't continue with bills like C-48, C-69, and all the other regulation over the last 10 years that the Liberal government has put into place, has put the boot to the throat of foreign investors, of domestic investors that want to invest and develop our resources. And we have countries that have come, leaders of countries that have come to Canada, Germany, France, Poland, Italy, Greece, Japan, Taiwan, all over the world. They're saying we need Canadian LNG, we need Canadian gas, and we're not developing it. Here in Quebec, we're sitting under some of the world's largest deposits of natural gas. Instead of developing it for the benefit of our citizens and the world at large, we have taken, I think, extreme positions on protecting our environment, which is also essential. But we need to find a happy medium between protecting our environment and developing natural resources that will continue to develop wealth and power our capacity to live as citizens.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And you know, this topic has also been very divisive, right? You know, the war in Iran, also like whether we should turn Canada into an energy superpower, right? For those people who don't really understand why Canada is not producing, you know, everything that we could be producing right now in terms of like energy, why is that? Like, is it mostly politics?
I think it's been completely politics. I think there's been a manipulation, a hijacking of the environmental agenda. And like I said, we all want to make sure the air we breathe, the water we drink, the atmosphere we live in is secure and environmentally sustainable. there's not a single human being that doesn't believe that. But like anything else, when you go to the extreme, you don't achieve very much. And right now, the environmental zealots, I call them, they've gone so far to the extreme where they are making it difficult for citizens in this country, in this province. There's almost 50%, 45, 50% of taxes and levies that are placed on the pump every time a Montrealer goes and fills up their caravan, without which they can't drive their kids to school. They can't go to work. They can't take their kids to soccer practice. They can't heat their homes.
Yeah.
We can't sustain our buildings, our factories, the jobs we have. And without sustaining that, people forget we can't keep our Medicare system. We can't keep funding our education system. We can't keep building infrastructure. So we need to find a balance between making sure we have good, sustainable environmental policy, making sure that green technology is developed at a rapid speed, but in the meantime, we can't suffocate human beings with not developing the natural resources that God has given us, and without which our countries cannot survive.
Yeah. Well, in the Philippines right now, for example, because they're not getting the fuel from, the Middle East, right? A lot of people are walking by foot to go to work.
For sure.
And they're so worried.
But sometimes it's not realistic. Going to work is too far.
But they have no choice.
Yeah.
And then now they're also introducing in certain countries in Asia a 4-day work week because people can't afford to go to work. They can't even afford, the jeepneys can't even afford fuel. Right.
So, and in the meantime, we need to improve human productivity. So you can't go to 3-4 day work weeks because productivity can't keep up. So it's this vicious circle. And in order to break that vicious circle, I believe we need to find a balance. We need, Canada has clean energy. We have the capacity to have renewable energy. And we have proven that we can exploit our natural resources in a safe, coherent fashion while making a great contribution to the world and Canadian economy.
Now, Senator Housakos, what's uncomfortable truth about Canada today that most politicians aren't willing to say out loud? Uncomfortable truth.
I would say the number one issue that needs to be tackled, that is an uncomfortable truth, and no politician has talked about it, including the leader of our own party, but including the Prime Minister, all political leaders, because it's very, very uncomfortable, because the solution is not an easy one, and that is the issue of productivity. Canada has one of the lowest levels of productivity over the last dozen years. The OECD and other, all kinds of think tanks around the world have shown our productivity has just tanked, has gone down to the bottom of the barrel. And no politician directly has addressed that issue, because the issue that needs to be addressed is we need to sit down and say once and for all that we need to get Canadians back to work. And there's a number of things that could be done, but fundamentally, the hardest thing for a politician is to tell our Canadian public, you're not working hard enough, right? That's the reflex. Most people say, well, tell the public to, get the public to start working hard enough, trying to, there's a lot of uncomfortable positions that we can take. Right now, the Prime Minister's taking one, which is a very uncomfortable liberal position. He's trying to get the public service back to work in Ottawa, back in their offices, because they have come to the conclusion it's not productive.
I see.
Right? I would say, being good conservatives, that if we want to increase productivity, you need to start rewarding hard work and start punishing lack of hard work. And I'll say something that no politician wants to engage in, and this is my personal view, not a position of the Conservative Party or anybody else. People that work overtime should pay less taxes on the money they're earning on overtime.
I agree.
People that refuse to work overtime when overtime is offered to them should be taxed more.
Really?
Really. I find we have a system in this country where I know waiters, waitresses, people working in the service industry, they don't want to work past the 40-hour threshold, not because they can't or it's not offered, because they're saying, what for when I'm paying tons of taxes?
Yeah, I hear that a lot too.
Right. There's doctors who are paying 50%, they're at a 53% tax threshold. They're saying, why should I work extra time and overtime and see more patients and make more money when I do the calculations, it doesn't pay?
Yeah, I've been hearing this my whole life. Like, why should I work more if it means I'm just going to pay more taxes, right?
100%.
So you're saying that Canada's productivity has decreased, but a lot of young people feel like, well, there's not a lot of jobs, right? It's hard to find a job now. And on top of that, they feel like we can't keep up with the rising cost of everything. So it's kind of like,
well,
you know,
the unemployment
which
rate
one
has
came
grown
first?
now recently. The youth unemployment rate is disproportionately very high. I agree with you. But up until a couple of years ago, that wasn't the case. There was a lot of jobs out there. There were probably a lot of jobs in certain sectors where, people weren't looking in. There's that element as well. And I understand that, because at the end of the day, you got to be working in a field you're passionate about. I mean, we don't believe in slavery in this country. We don't believe in people doing things they don't want to do. It's called freedom. We definitely need to do a better job educating our people and preparing our people for certain sectors. Look, the last 10 years, the trades, for example, there was a shortage, and there still is in the trades. And now we're accelerating to try to get people reinterested. Because for the longest time, the view was go to university, get a university degree, and live happily ever after.
Yeah.
It's becoming harder and harder in certain sectors. And I'll say this, it's very unpopular to people at Concordia and McGill and Université de Montréal. But I don't think our universities have done a very good job at educating people in a way where they're prepared for the demands of the workforce that's there today.
I agree.
I think universities are stuck in a previous era where they were producing engineers and biochemists and software developers and what have you, perfectly fit for the workforce of the 1980s and 90s and 2000, but definitely not for the demands of the last 2 decades.
Yeah. Surprisingly, a lot of young people, Gen Zs, that I'm meeting today, when I ask them, what are you going to study in college or university? They tell me they're going to trade school. And I think it's because they're seeing what's happening with AI now. A lot of, office jobs are disappearing.
Yep.
And they're realizing that I can't just go to university, get a degree in 4 years and 6 years, and I don't even know if it's relevant in the future. So a lot of them are actually interested in, becoming a welder, becoming an electrician, and maybe starting a business around that. So I think the younger generation, the
For
Gen
sure.
Zs, are becoming more realistic because they're seeing the younger millennials are getting laid offs here and there, having a hard time finding a job.
Look, I'm a technology refugee, but as an observer of someone who was in business for half of my life and now in politics the other half of my life, I can tell you that every generation gets challenged by an obstacle that, if harnessed properly, becomes an opportunity. And AI is that challenge, which you can run away from and say that it's going to take away jobs and make it tougher for the younger generation, but it's also going to provide opportunities in business that we've never seen before. So like anything else, when we said that people have to work hard, be focused, persevere, there was another word we used, innovation. Don't be afraid of innovation. Don't be afraid of trying something new. That's what created Uber. That's what created Airbnbs. That's what, there's a lot of different businesses that are out there that were founded by people that are generating wealth, that are creating economic, and they're transforming
Yeah.
the way economic trade is being done. So young people are, I'm sure, going to rise to that occasion out of necessity,
Yeah.
right? And universities are going to have to adapt as well. You know, we talk about AI centers. Universities are either going to have to partner up with the, you know, the, what is it, AWSs of the world and the Googles of the world and all these various AI companies and start becoming a player.
Yeah.
I think they've been following in those fields, the industry, rather than working with industry. And it's not a criticism, it's just a call to action. And like anything else, you will either adapt or you'll be left behind.
I agree with you. And look, because you're a politician, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of young people watching this episode right now who want to get into politics, who want to work in Ottawa. What advice would you give them, to get a position there?
Look, learn, engage, explore, get involved, come out and meet people like Margie Ramos, who is more than just a fantastic podcast interviewer and host, but she's someone who walks the talk. You've been involved in politics, you've been to conventions, you've been talking about public policy. Obviously, those that share the visions of less government, more personal initiative should join the Conservative Party of Canada. That's what we're about. We're about letting people drive the political agenda and government rather than the other way around. Reach out to me, like I said, send me an email if you wish. If you're not interested necessarily in partisan politics and you're more interested in public discourse, reach out to the Senate of Canada as well. We have a lot of senators that hire a lot of interns. There's a lot of students that we hire on an intern basis. Last summer, I had 5 from the University of Ottawa that were doing policy work in my office. The opportunities are endless. You just got to go find them sometimes.
All right, thank you, Senator Housakos.
Margie, thank you. Ms. Ramos, and I appreciate being on your show. Continue your great work, and looking forward to continue to follow your career wherever it may lead, but I'm sure you're going to do great things.
Thank you so much.